Hi, I'm Patty Koffman. As you heard, I'm the executive director of the CLL Society and the caregiver of Brian Koffman. And we'd like to start things off with a bang here today. And as you probably are aware, one of the really important missions of the CLL Society is to educate. And we realize that CAR T therapy is it's evolving, it's changing all the time. It's certainly challenging for the caregiver. Everything is a curveball for us, especially with CAR T. So we've written a comic book. Brian and I authored it. Our son drew it. And we'd like to explain in a very quick and snappy way what CAR T therapy just help you form some concepts around CAR T therapy. Hi, I am a blood cell. In fact, I'm a special blood cell. I'm a lymphocyte. Not just any lymphocyte. I'm a T cell. I'm the captain of the immune system. Inside the blood, bone, marrow, and lymph nodes of a wonderful person, and I help protect him against germs and cancer. But my person seems to be sick. He has swelling of the lymph nodes, indicating that he is sick. This isn't going. My cousins, the B lymphocytes, or B cells for short, have grown too much. They're crowding out the bone marrow, and they're leaving very little room for the healthy blood cells to mature. And they're making my person sicker and sicker. And it's affecting me too. I feel exhausted myself. I can't do my work. I'm suspicious that these B cells are not behaving normally. Not only are they growing in the bone marrow and swelling the lymph nodes, they're all identical. They're clonal, and they've quit doing their job as part of the immune system. They've become traitors to my person. They've become cancerous. My person has developed CLL, or chronic lymphocytic leukemia. And these new cells have become very clever at hiding from me. I need some help recognizing them. I'm so tired. I think it's their bad influence. I've let my person down. Hey, wait a minute. I'm being pulled out of my person. I'm being spun around like crazy in a leukapheresis machine. And to add insult to injury, I'm being attacked by viruses, and they're inserting new messages into my DNA, my instructional code. I'm changed. I'm transformed, focused, and powerful. I'm part me, part another creature, like the ancient mythical chimera that was part lion, part goat, and part snake. In my case, it's part human and part virus. The virus is helping me to build a new receptor to recognize a marker on the surface of B cells, CD19. I'm a chimeric antigen receptor T cell, a CAR T, as I like to be called. And by the way, my new CAR has a target element, a spacer, a transmembrane domain, co-stimulatory domain, signaling domain to supercharge me. And now I'm being stimulated to reproduce. Though I'm not inside my person, I am growing in the perfect incubator. There must be millions of identical copies of me, and they keep checking on me to make sure I'm healthy. But where's my person? I'm still outside my person. Well, unbeknownst to CAR T, back in his person, chemotherapy has been busy obliterating large numbers of competing lymphocytes through lymphodepletion to increase the safety of CAR T's imminent return. Weeks have passed, but wait, I'm on the move again. Hey, what's going on? I'm being injected back into my person. Oh, I need to rest after all this travel. I need to get used to being back in my person's body. And then sometime later, I've never felt stronger. I'm ready to grow again and be on the move. I have superpowers. Those cancerous B cells can't hide from me now. We CAR Ts are ready to attack. It's a killing frenzy. Bang, bop, bam. Uh-oh. My person's feeling sick again. Maybe we overdid it. There's inflammation everywhere. Maybe my person is one of those who releases too many strong signals called cytokines to engage the immune system. Those cytokines, while helping kill the cancer, can make a person very ill sometimes. This is called cytokine release syndrome, or CRS. Sometimes CRS can make the person feel loopy, They can have trouble talking. They can even have seizures, lose consciousness, and in worst cases, they can die from brain swelling. This is called neurotoxicity, but most people recover quickly. But now the drugs, steroids, and tocilizumab are being injected into my person. They're calming the inflammation. I'm cooling down. I'm feeling stronger. And most importantly, there are far fewer cancer cells. But my ongoing mission is to seek and destroy any stragglers until there are none left. That's what I was programmed to do. I hope to stay around for a very long time, maintaining my surveillance to keep my person free from leukemia.
Now that we've told things from the T-cell point of view, we will now tell things from the patient and caregiver view. And I'm going to start with how do you make a decision to go to CAR T? And the first point that I want to make is that I had to make that decision because I was relapsing. I developed a resistance to ibrutinib, and my leukemia was coming back. And while it started slowly, it was kind of a hockey stick curve and going off quickly, and I had to make a decision. And again, I had conflicting advice. The two doctors that were taking care of me, two of the biggest names in CLL research, had said to me, one had said, you really should get CAR T therapy. It's the way to go for you. You've relapsed here. And the other, when I told him I was going for CAR T therapy, he hung his head down and said, Brian, why are you doing this? So, you have to deal with this conflicting advice. But I went for it, and I'll tell you why. It's the chess move reason. There was a great trial that was open. It had tremendous success. There had been one death in the trial, but I would have been the 36th patient. Response rates were well over 80%. Most people were doing extremely well. And I figured if I did that trial and it didn't work, I could always move on to another drug. Venetoclax was an option. There was new things. But if I'd done something else and I'd relapsed, it hadn't worked, I'd been part of that small percentage it doesn't work, the CAR T may not be available to me because they're entering phase 3 trials. So it just seemed like I should grab this window. It's like the chess game. You always need another move ahead.
If I may interject something here, when you're a caregiver, it's always disruptive. It's very hard when you see medical experts out there who disagree with one another. It's very hard when you hear from your patient, we're definitely going for this CAR T. I don't think we are. We're having second thoughts about this. It's back and forth, it's up and down all the time. It's very hard on the caregiver. I would say that as a caregiver, the most important quality is loyalty. So you will never have enough skills. Certainly not with CAR T, where the impact on the patient is so unpredictable. So that's our journey.
I'm going to talk a little bit about, we moved to Seattle because we thought the Hutch had the most experience doing this. They were the first people to do transplants, and they had a lot of experience with cellular therapy, and they had the most experience with this CAR T product. So we went and moved up there. Not everybody's lucky enough to be able to do that. That was still very, very difficult for us. We arrived late in February. I finished the trial at Ohio State on ibrutinib in the mid-February. By the end of February, I was in the CAR T trial because my cancer was really taking off. And again, as Dr. Munir talked, you don't want those nodes to get too big, because if they get too big, just like at the transplant, the CAR T doesn't work as well. So I go up there, and the first thing they do is make sure you're psychologically okay, cardiac okay, respiratory okay. They restage you. You have CAT scans, PET scans, bone marrow biopsies, everything. Tons. I had so much blood drawn that I became iron deficient. 16 tubes of blood at a time was not unusual, a couple times a week. But they check to make sure you're okay. Then they take then you go through this leukapheresis. It's about, in my case, about 2.5 hours. It can be shorter, it can be longer for other people. You have a needle in one arm, you have a needle in the other arm. You can't move your arms. One is just they can't have plastic over the needle. It goes through this spinny machine, the leukapheresis. Then the nurse physically carries it over to the lab where it's going to be made. And then you're starting to wait to see, are they going to be able to grow the cells? Am I going to be that one that they can't manufacture them? You go through more testings and everything while all of this is going on. And then you get, go ahead.
Should I talk about the help we got from other CAR T patients?
And maybe you want to talk, about that and Dr. Maloney, yeah.
Okay. Well, first of all, we were very worried. I know that Brian has had sort of some communication with other CAR T patients, but we put the word out there that we really wanted to hear from them now. This was a great area of interest for us, and we were contacted by CAR T patients from really around the world, and they told some pretty frightening stories. That was good and that was bad. They described a lot of challenges that they had physically going through it. A lot of them, almost every one of them, said they were loopy or silly, out of it, couldn't construct their thoughts properly. Some had some degree of aphasia, some didn't speak at all, some had temporary paralysis. One described being blind in one eye for a significant period of time. One needed 6 months of physical therapy in order to walk again. And for some, it seemed to be a bit of a cakewalk. And we realized that we were dealing with something that would be, in Brian's case, just unpredictable. So I felt very uplifted by hearing that people, even though they'd been that challenged, had really come out of it. So I'm very grateful for those people who contacted us. But then I got a visit from Dr. Maloney, and he said...
He was the principal investigator of the trial. Yeah.
So Dr. Maloney came and spoke to Brian in doctor-to-doctor terms, and then he turned to me and he said, "But Patty, I'm really most worried about you. It's very hard on the caregiver." He said, "Don't worry about Brian. He'll be okay." And then he listed, I think he needed to do this, I think this is his disclaimer, all of the things that could possibly go wrong, including that he could die. So I was, caregivers do, I have to tell you, we get to a point where we're kind of numb. We just, like I said before, loyalty is the most important thing. You're in it, you set aside all of your, everything that you wanted to do stops. That's the story of the caregiver. You're totally devoted to the good outcome of the situation for the patient. Then Dr. Maloney said, "No matter how bad he gets, don't pull the plug. I can save him."
So a couple things I wanted to talk about here, but in the interest of time. I had the chemo, it was kind of a non-event, some nausea and stuff like that. You get the infusion back, it's psychologically a big deal. This is happening, they were able to grow the cells. But medically, it's like a non-event. Nothing happens, you get this infusion, it's like over 40 minutes. It's just like, it's easier than getting blood. I mean, it was like nothing. But now you can't turn back. You've got this virus, I've got mouse genes inside me, I'm chimeric from this point on. And then the waiting begins, and maybe you can talk briefly about the list of things that they gave you to watch for.
I have to tell you that that medicine practiced at this level is highly organized, that there is amazing coordination in multiple aspects of the healthcare team. Especially at the Hutch, they have a dedicated unit that they say if Brian experiences any of these things, and a long list of potential symptoms was given, the one that seemed to trip the switch to bring him into the hospital would be a spiking of fever. So as a caregiver, you are often up all night and you keep taking his temperature. I had to keep waking him up and taking his temperature. He did spike a temperature. I know that we're running out of time here. I just want to tell you really quickly, he had 2 hospital admissions. The first one was provoked by high temperature, but there were much more grim effects for the second one, and that was that he eventually became completely paralyzed.
Yeah, I was, Patty, you have this thing on the fridge that's telling her to check my temp, do this, if he does this, if he does that. I have to be within 20 minutes of the hospital. It's ridiculous. There's a nice vegan restaurant 30 minutes away. No, you can't go. You got to be within 20 minutes of the hospital, because when you go south fast.
Very quickly.
So I was getting achy pains, couldn't move. I didn't know what was going on, and I was getting, didn't realize how bad I was. Ended up having to have an ambulance come, take me on a gurney to the hospital, couldn't move. My legs swelled up, 3+ edema. red-hot joints and excruciating pain. They couldn't figure out what was going on with me. My immune system had been released. The levers had switched to autoimmunity. I was getting severe arthritic pains all over my body. It's still controversial. Actually, we're writing a paper that we hope to publish on me to describe. It's very funny. I'm writing this paper. There's this 66-year-old male who experienced CAR T therapy, but they were giving me Dilaudid, which is a strong opioid, around the counter, around the clock. I was hallucinating. I was delusional. I was talking to people, not remembering this. Much, much harder on my wife. My wife got support from my daughter, who flew up to be with me. People didn't know what would happen to me, my adult children.
I want to interject here that one of our daughters is an architect who specializes in converting housing, both multifamily housing and single-family housing, for people with disabilities. And a lot of the time that I was spending on the phone with our 4 adult children was, Dad may never recover from this, and we may have to completely convert the house, and he'll probably be an invalid. I want you to know that we really felt that. We were scared to death, but we were willing to accept whatever it was.
So, but then I got the steroids and the tocilizumab.
Hooray for tocilizumab.
The problems melted away. I got
Really
way
quickly.
better. I had to go through rehab and learn how to walk again, but I did get much better. Again, I was out of it. It was much harder on my wife and my daughters than it was on me, because I didn't know what was happening. I was completely gone. But the good news is, at my restaging 1 month later, when they looked in my bone marrow and using next-gen sequencing down to 1 in a million cells, no CLL there. When they looked in my blood, no CLL. My lymph nodes, which had been grown, were all back to normal size. And I just got back results from 2 weeks ago, and there's still no CLL in my blood. So all of that, we got what we came for. But I got to say, CAR T therapy isn't for wimps. I mean, it's very tough. And I also have to say one thing, and I don't want to sour the crowd, but down the hall from me was a good friend, 2 weeks behind me in her trial, who didn't make it. And there was another person in the trial who had a complete remission and didn't even have to be hospitalized. And Dr. Manier and Dr. Maloney, and nobody can tell in advance who's going to fly through it and who's going to get sick. And but I feel very blessed, and I'm so glad for this technology. And the one thing I'd said before, whatever therapy we have today is going to be better tomorrow. The CAR Ts I got were great CAR Ts, but they're making better ones now. And but it's tough. I'd be happy to talk with people personally about it later.
Thank you.